when one of us is stronger, all of us become stronger. So let's share what we have during this time.
Follow the Leader features dynamic women entrepreneurs in their journeys to becoming a success in business. This podcast is an inspirational space for entrepreneurs, future entrepreneurs, and thought leaders as they share their keys to success. I am Chanel Christoph Davis, the CEO and founding partner of the largest woman and minority-owned sales tax advisory practice in the country, Davis & Harmon, LLC. Today, we have Jennefer Witter of the Boreland Group. She is the president and CEO of a PR firm headquartered in New York City, and her firm has been in existence for 17 years. I heard her probably last year on another podcast, and I immediately went to find who she was because she was so impactful, and her presence was definitely, like it stood out to me. It leaped out of the podcast. You guys know I'm an avid podcast connoisseur. I'm a student of the game, so I'm constantly listening and trying to find people to identify, to bring to my audience. And Jennefer Witter she just literally jumped out of the podcast world and into my life. I followed her ever since. And the reason why I wanted to bring her on is she's very acclaimed for what she does. She was named one of the 10 most successful Black CEOs and entrepreneurs by Madame Noir magazine. She's one of the 5 national Black women-owned businesses that's considered making a buzz. She's author of the little book of Big PR, 100 plus quick tips to get your small business noticed. And she was most recently featured on WJLA, Good Morning Washington. And she spoke on the topic of virtual networking during coronavirus. So this is really one of the main reasons why I'm having her on, because we are taping this in the mid of a pandemic, coronavirus 19. And I wanted to talk to her about, I'm a small business owner. I've been in the game for 19 years. But this is a whole new world. So how do we as women business owners, all business owners, stay relevant and present and on the radar, on the map when we're all sheltered in place? So welcome, Jennefer.
Oh, thank you so much. I am so happy to be here. And thank you so much for your kind words. It really is an honor to be speaking with you and your audience. And just a little tiny tweak is that with WJLA, I did speak about virtual networking, but I also spoke about networking. It was before the pandemic, but It doesn't matter because networking and virtual networking, they're basically the same thing, the same foundation, which is going out there and creating a mutually beneficial relationship that will assist you and your business moving forward. And, as you were saying, this pandemic has hit so many businesses so hard. And I was reading in the Wall Street Journal about a week ago where they said that networking is withering on the vine and how this is going to impact business. All I have to say to you and your listeners is that you don't have to worry about networking. Yes, traditional networking is out the window for the time being, but you can still network using social media as your networking platform. And I coined the phrase virtual networking because it's exactly that, using LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter to reach out to your audiences, reach out to the companies, and through a strategic program, continuing or develop a relationship that will enable your business to keep moving forward even during this difficult time.
So you say 2 things that I'm writing down as you speak, and 2 things that leaped out to me. You said, 1, it has to be your virtual networking, any networking has to be A, mutually beneficial,
yes,
and B, strategic. So let's talk about that. That's 2 things I don't think I speak a lot to other women business owners, and I mentor them, and I'm often explaining to them that there has to be reciprocity. Even when you're looking for any type of relationship, you have to think ahead. And so talk to me about the mutual beneficial piece and the strategic piece of it all.
Absolutely. I mean, networking, when I do my seminars, I say, what is networking? And how I defined it to you was just that, because we sometimes make a mountain out of a molehill, and it's very streamlined. But people who go into networking, obviously are thinking about what they can get. But the basis of a successful relationship is what you can give. Because it cannot be a one-way street. You can't get. And if you don't give, guess what's going to happen? That relationship will dissolve because the other person is going to feel taken advantage of, and they're not going to want to continue the relationship. Networking is truly not a friendship. It is a business-based relationship. Now, the cherry on the cake is if that networking relationship becomes a friendship, and that has happened many times. But when you're going to networking events at chambers of commerce, or you're using LinkedIn to reach out, which is how you and I connected,
absolutely,
you have to keep in mind that this is a business building tool that you need to use. And then for the strategic end of it, even though we are not within our normal confines, so to speak, there is still a limited amount of hours. Many of us have children to take care of, parents to take care of. I've heard about the stress on parents, and especially women right now, to the point where many women are thinking of quitting their jobs because they can't handle all of what is happening. So when I say strategic, there are a couple of things I want people to keep in mind when they're doing virtual networking. The first thing is pick the platform that you want to use. And for me, I use LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook. They are the oldest platforms, and for me and my business, they work the very best.
Okay.
The second thing that you should do is define your objective. What do you want the platform to achieve for you? For example, with LinkedIn, I use it to highlight my speaking engagements, primary, secondary, my business. And from LinkedIn, I can tell you I've gotten speaking engagements at the Pentagon. And from the Pentagon, I got speaking engagement at Brookings, Columbia University, and it all came off LinkedIn.
Wow.
And the third thing is to figure out how much time you have. And, you know, what is that saying? You can't fit a 15-pound bag into a 1-pound hole. We just can't do it.
Can't do it.
No. So again, a lot of people make it sound like I have to do it 20 hours a week. No, you can do it for as little as 1 hour. Pick a platform, figure out your objective, set the time frame that you want to do, and then you have the basic elements that you're starting out to build a foundation that is successful.
Yes.
But you need to do those 3 things first before you go into virtual networking.
And I also like the way you describe that each platform that you use, make sure you have almost like a separate strategy for it. So you have an avatar for your audience. So you know exactly what you're talking about, and you're very streamlined in your approach and what you're communicating through each channel. So I think that's really good.
That's great. You know, again, I mentioned how I use LinkedIn. For Facebook, I use it for my business. I highlight my business. And when I tell people the next thing I say, they're like, really? I have generated tens of thousands of dollars in revenue from Facebook.
Yes.
And it's because I am putting down what I am doing. And then from Twitter, I use it to build relationships. And I have connected with people far beyond my wildest dreams. And Twitter is so much easier to connect than LinkedIn, because you need to get that invitation accepted.
Yes.
But Twitter, you can go straight to the person, but in order for them to see you, you have to use their handles. Mm-hmm. And so you get into their feed that way. So I use LinkedIn again for speaking primarily, Facebook primarily for business, and Twitter primarily for building relationships.
Wow. So I think also too, I would like to touch on content and what makes content stand out versus something that a person's going to, you know, pass by and not stop. Because I feel like we're in the age of of an influx of information. Like we're constantly bombarded with
Yes.
incoming messages. So how do we make these platforms work for us so that we really indeed stand out?
It's called breaking through the clutter. And with this pandemic, I am posting less about my business and less about speaking. And I'm using the platform primarily as a resource capture page.
Good.
Because just what you said, there's so much coming at us. I mean, this grant, that webinar, that Zoom.
It's a lot.
Yeah, it's overwhelming. So what I've been doing on my page, and again, I'm a passionate advocate for women, and 90% of the work I do is focused toward women of color, is that I have been posting about grants and loans for women, particularly women of color. I found this great organization called HelloAlice.com that is issuing grants specifically to those two categories. I posted about that. Mental health is an emerging passion of mine because of what we're going through. So I've been posting a lot about that. And I have been getting comments from my followers about, this is so helpful. Thank you for sharing. I'm learning so much. Now, I'm still working in information about speaking. I'm still working in references to my business, but the majority of my posts are about resources that we can use during this time. And the thinking behind that, obviously, is to give back, to share, because this is what I say, when one of us is stronger, all of us become stronger. So let's share what we have during this time. But also looking long term, the eyeballs that I am attracting now will continue to come to my page when all is said and done. So definitely it's two-pronged, but it is a thinking that isn't scattershot. Again, I say, figure out what your objective is and follow it that way.
And be consistent. I do think that people have to be careful about their messaging right now. I've been trying to use LinkedIn because I've been doing the podcast for 3 years. It's inevitable when I talk to women, we talk about recession. We talk about building a strong foundation. We talk about, leadership techniques. So I've been kind of going into the archive and resharing, that content so that people can, listen to all these experts that I've accumulated over the years and get pearls of wisdom from them. And hopefully that'll give you the courage to know that we will come out of this.
That is brilliant. That is great. And what you can do is advance notice your audience. For example, being so honored about being on this podcast, I posted it on Twitter and I said, stay tuned. I'll post the link when it goes live.
Yes.
I've been doing a couple of videos and, before I even started, I said, I'm going to be doing these videos on. So you work your way up and then you grab those eyeballs and the interest, and then you start producing content that supports that objective. One thing that I want to note, and, this is about women, and I speak in broad brush statements, is that we do not promote ourselves.
That's true. No, that's not broad at all. I've learned that during this podcasting. I have to sometimes wrangle women and coerce them and convince them they have a story. They always tell me, I don't have anything to share. I'm like, you've been in business for 30 years. What are you talking about? That's impossible.
It's frustrating. It is very frustrating. And I have it the same thing where these very accomplished CEOs will say, oh, no, I can't say I did that or I did that. And again, nobody will know how great you are until you tell them.
Yes.
Go out there, and my phrase is get your unfair share of attention, because now more than ever, we need not only to hold onto our market share, but to grow it.
Yes.
So you need to go out, develop your personal brand, say who you are, what makes you different, what makes you memorable, and then go out there and post about the great things you're doing and say, I did. Don't say we, because yes, it's me, myself, and I, but it's one person, it's me. And a lot of women have a hard time doing that. And with men, They go out there. Women think the work will speak for itself, and you'll see men walking the halls and, the old boys network. That's what it is. So we need to take a page from that and promote ourselves, because nobody else will.
Yes.
So use your virtual media. You've been doing it beautifully by promoting yourself, your business, and the like. And other women need to do this, because now, as I said, we need to have a bigger voice because of the times we're currently living in.
Absolutely, because a lot of people are going to be lost in the sauce because of this pandemic. We're going to be, we're going to lose some leaders because of this, because of the overwhelming nature of an all-encompassing nature of this pandemic. So at this point is not the time to retreat, because and I've been seeing so many women in my network, not so many, I've seen, a few women in my network that really has stepped it up. And I'm like, this is cool. And I love the way they do it. Like they're in their home office. They may have on workout clothes. They do it really, really cute to show that I'm at my house too. Isn't this crazy? So it's a tad bit of, relatability, being vulnerable. I think all of that's important right now.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, we're all in this together. With women, it's so funny how many women have said they're going to stampede out the moment they can to go to the hairdresser, get their nails done, or, get their eyebrows done. So, nobody is looking 100%. And you know what? Who cares?
It's okay.
It's fine.
Okay.
It is fine. Be you. And the person is listening to what you have to say. You are a thought leader. Share your information. There's plenty to go around. You can contribute to the conversation. And what always makes my heart sing is when somebody comes up to me after one of my presentations and say, wow, that was inspiring, or you made me think of something else. Then I feel like I've gotten like a gold coin. It's priceless.
Yeah. And I think too, for me, I view it as by being more visible and, known in my business network and in my local community, it's an act of service for me, because I'm showing other people, A, it can be done. It's possible. And B, so many people poured into me to get me where I am. If I just lock it all up inside of me and I'm selfish about it and don't want to share, to me, that's a disservice to all the people who pushed me forward and came before me. So I'm trying to, really share my knowledge and, be of service.
Give it back. That's the whole thing. I mean, I remember my blessings. I remember the women who were there who helped me get to where I am today. And I feel it's incumbent upon me to give it back, because what am I going to do? Keep it all in my head? There is more than enough room for all of us.
Absolutely.
And we need to, as we're climbing the ladder, pull other women up with us. So I'm totally supporting you in your statements.
Absolutely. So we got right into Corona so fast. Normally I tease a little bit, but I think we kind of did a pre-podcast before the real podcast. So we kind of got ahead of ourselves. But take me back to early, Jennefer. How did you start this business? Why did you start this business? Tell us about your business and what you do.
Okay, well, thank you for that. I started the business, as you noted, 17 years ago, and I have to say I fell into it, just like I fell into PR. When I graduated from college, I studied journalism, and I wanted to be a foreign correspondent, but there was a huge recession, which at the time was considered the worst recession since the Great Recession. And I had been interning at the New York Botanical Garden in their PR department, and my boss, Marge Lovero, said, you know what, you have a natural talent for this. Why don't you stay here? And when you get a job in television, you can move on. And it turned out that I really enjoyed this field, and I never left. And so I worked at the New York Botanical Garden, then I went into the agency world. And the agency world is not like Sex and the City, Samantha. It is very high stress. It is.
You're not just sitting around with Malolo bonnets on and attending galas.
No, sorry to break that myth. It was a myth. Okay. You're in a client-based business, and it's a service business, and it can be very difficult, very hair-raising, and it's not 9 to 5. And just before I started the Boreland Group, I was the VP at Ketchum Public Relations, and I was the head of their corporate technology department. I'll never forget, it was an August day, sunny, the sunlight was pouring into my office, and I had a worldwide staff of 30, everything. And I said, it won't get better than this. It
Oh,
won't
wow.
last. And the next month was September 2001. And within days, my worldwide staff went from 30 to 2, myself and my assistant. Virtually all of the technology accounts were gone.
Wow.
And around the time in that framework, I lost my mother. So it was just an awful time. And I decided to take a year off. And I quit my job. And in the time that I was off, I said, do you want to stay in PR? And it's like, yes, I do. I do like it. So what do you want to do? And I was sending out resumes kind of grudgingly. And then it just came to me, why don't you start your own business?
Right.
And that's how it started. And so me being me, I just wasn't going to start a business. I went to SCORE. I went to SBA. I took all of these classes. I spoke to attorneys. I figured out what the best form of incorporation was for my business. And then during this process, I sent out like 200 emails to my network. And I said, I'm starting a business. Do you know anyone who's looking for a publicist? And I got one response.
Wow.
And it was a friend of mine from Ketchum who said, a friend of mine's sister-in-law is looking for a publicist.
What?
Yes. It wasn't even him or the friend. It was, 2 times removed.
Oh my gosh.
I met with her. I didn't even have business cards because I wasn't fully formed, incorporated, and she hired me. And it was in real estate. And from that first account, that's what started the Boreland Group. And the work that we did, I never had to pitch. I never had to do anything of the sort for several years. The business was raining down.
Wow.
And it just kept growing and growing. And then very quickly, I saw the same bubbliness in real estate that I saw in technology. And I went, no, this has to change. And so that's when I began to diversify.
Nice.
I will tell.
What were those leading indicators to let you know that it was about to come to an end?
Too many people were getting houses who were not qualified.
Oh.
It was as simple as that. It was just too bubbly. There were people, I'll give you a story. If you're in New York, it was a woman, her husband sold like hats and gloves on the street corner, and she wasn't even working, and they got a full mortgage for their home.
What?
There was no way he could have generated enough income to keep a full house going with heating, electricity, water. One client of mine said they would have given a mortgage to a monkey. That's how bad it was. And with my clients, they were in the luxury end, but still yet, luxury is like this much of the market, and most of it is like regular people.
Right, regular people.
Yeah, and it was just too many cracks in the foundation.
Mm.
And so I was seeing it, and I said, okay, so I diversified, and I started networking, and I started speaking. And this is something I tell every business owner now, have multiple streams of revenue.
Yes.
Don't depend on one thing. And under the Boreland Group, primarily it is the PR agency, but I also have the income coming in from speaking. So when one is up and the other one is down, it kind of complements each other. And I can say right now, that's what's really helping me during this time, because I've been doing virtual speaking engagements. I have a lot of leads. And, with the business, I'll be honest, I lost a client because their source of revenue completely dried up like that. But you and I were talking about the blessings, the fact that I still have clients. I feel very blessed about, but you just don't know what's going to happen tomorrow.
You don't know what's going to happen 6 months down the road. We really don't know.
No. And then, of course, with the book, it was published in 2014 by HarperCollins, and I am still generating revenue from that. But I use it as a tool to get me into speaking engagements, getting me in front of clients, to help my brand with the thought leadership. So it's not selling, a huge amount, but it's still selling. And the business that it has brought in, because remember what I said about personal branding, how many, PR CEOs have their own book, published by a well-respected publisher. It's not self-published. I'm not knocking that, but, there is a difference when you can say HarperCollins, which is a very well-known publisher, has published my book, and you leverage it, leverage everything you have. Yes. And so, right now, I was changing the branding, because you have to change the branding of the company. And as you said, we're corporate communications with a focus on women-led and minority-owned businesses, because I feel those are my sweet spots. That's where my passion is. And these are overlooked communities that don't get their fair share of attention.
Right,
so whatever my company can do for them to get that attention and visibility and their due recognition, that is something that I am dedicated to achieving.
It's interesting. It really goes back to why I started my podcast, because again, I'm an avid podcast connoisseur. I'm constantly listening to podcasts, and I noticed a couple things. This was 3 years ago. I started my podcast. One, majority of the hosts were men, and two, majority of the thought leaders, the people who they had on to speak, and give advice or to give knowledge and expertise, were men.
Yes.
So I was like, okay, I know so many brilliant women CEOs. Like I'm constantly amongst them. Mm-hmm. I have got to tell their stories.
Yes.
So
their stories exactly. They're more than worthy to be told. And this goes into diversity and inclusion, because if we don't show that we are here, how can people take advantage of what we have to offer?
Absolutely.
We're not, they use that phrase unicorn. Public relations is basically white. And someone said to me within the past year, Jennefer, you're a unicorn, meaning I'm a Black woman, a CEO, head of the company. And I know that person was giving me a compliment, but we're not unicorns. We're here. There are plenty of us in all
so many of us. Is amazing. Yeah. And we don't get our fair share of press at all.
We're not seen. Like when, oh my gosh, what is it? What is it? The Wakanda is escaping me.
Black Panther?
Yes, Black Panther. When that movie came out, they had a picture of, I believe, like Black animators. And it was like 30 or 40 of them. It was on Facebook and it went viral. And it was like, look this, and it's like, it shouldn't be a big deal. Like when you see a Black airline pilot, it shouldn't be a big deal.
Absolutely.
Because there are plenty of us.
You're out here, yes.
Just as you said, we don't get our fair share. We are invisible until we're out there. And even to this day, because I've been working since the 1980s, the same things I heard back then, I am still hearing now, but there is an inching forward, because people are now becoming aware that they have to have a diverse and inclusive office. Very quickly, I believe it was American Express, they will no longer work with an advertising agency if the team that they present to American Express is not diverse.
Wow.
So they want a diversity of opinion, and then mistakes that companies have made, like H&M and Target.
So mistakes. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Exactly. That those ridiculous, thoughtless mistakes. Starbucks, these two men are having coffee, and then police come and swoop them out and arrest them, and they were having coffee.
Yes. And what is Starbucks' whole motto is that, we are your living room. This is your second home.
Yes.
They're at the Starbucks having a business meeting, waiting for a business associate.
Exactly.
their second home. And
Well, not my second home.
and then get arrested. Yeah. No one gets arrested at their home. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. And I say that because I also, speak on implicit bias. And I said, can one employee cost you $8 million?
Absolutely.
And that's what happened with one stupid employee, cost them all of that money.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Well, so what do you say in this new environment to give a word of encouragement? Because I've also heard from a lot of women business owners that they're scared to put themselves out there. They don't want to upset people. They don't want to put the wrong messaging out. They don't want it to be tone deaf.
mm-hmm.
So do you have any tips, or if you would give us one thing to keep in mind,
Mm-hmm.
not do the wrong thing, since we're giving Starbucks as an example.
I know, and I can appreciate that very quickly. There's now a term in PR that's been developed. It's called virtue signaling.
Oh, I love it.
And that is when a company says, look at me, I'm doing so great. I'm giving away 100 free meals today and 200 tomorrow. Look at me. And there's a backlash. If you're going to do something good, mention it, but don't do the, I'm so great, look at me. So I can appreciate people being scared because those who don't have a communications advisor might inadvertently do that. What I would say that if you want to put yourself out there and you don't know how, or you're hesitant, either go to a consultant and, you can buy like an hour's worth of time and do brainstorm. Or you can speak to a trusted colleague and say, here are my ideas. What is your thought? And make sure that colleague won't yes you. You don't want a yes man or yes woman. Say, that is ridiculous. What are you thinking? Because we need that hard language sometimes to penetrate between our ears. But, think about hiring a consultant. You can do it like for an hour, or you can go to a trusted colleague, because it's what Oprah Winfrey said. When you hear that whisper, listen to it, because it's your inner voice telling you
to pause.
Take a step back. And so many of us don't listen to that inner voice. And this is what I've always said. A mistake is harder to rectify than doing the right thing. It's like Winston Churchill said, it takes a lifetime to build up a reputation and 15 minutes to destroy it.
Right. Yeah. And you definitely don't want to come out of, this whole scenario damaging your brand. I talked to another lady on the podcast, and she made a comment that, she was reached by someone that wanted her to go into the hand sanitizers. They found a good source to produce it. They were, it was going to be a good deal. They're going to make some money. And she said, that has nothing to do with my brand.
Yes.
If I do this, it's not coming from a altruistic or a good place or from my heart. I'm doing it for a profit motive. It didn't feel good. I would say to everyone that's listening to our voice, if it does not feel good,
don't do it.
Don't do it.
Absolutely. And I can say that it might have looked tempting because it is money, but we will emerge from this. Yes. And we have to look at the long term. Will you get money now? Clients later. Mm-hmm. So I know it's difficult, but sometimes you just have to hold on a little bit tight, because like Winston Churchill said, think about it. 35 years I've worked to create my reputation. I do one ridiculous thing and those years are wiped out.
All gone.
Yeah.
Wow. So last but not least, you've given us so much great information. I've been writing copious amounts of notes. So thank you for your expertise and your time. Before we leave, I want you to leave us with one good thing that you're doing now for self-care, get you through this time. One thing that you've incorporated that's new, maybe even a new skill that you've learned, something that you've never done before that, hey, pandemic times, you have to go on and just try it out. What have you done to
You know what? I love to read, and I have not been reading because my days have been filled up with work and this and that. And I was thinning out my apartment, and I was going through my books, and I found so many books that I have here that I hadn't read in a long time. So right now I'm picking up my love of reading again, and it is a joy to me just to crack open a book and to get lost in the pages. And that to me is the self-care, to stop my mind thinking about what is happening every day and get lost in beautifully written words is the best. It's my heart food.
Oh my gosh, that sounds so decadent. I can visualize you doing it now. That just sounds amazing. And I think one thing I hope, I'm gonna say, not think, but I hope, and my prayer is that all of these things that we are starting to do to take care of ourselves, we are going to realize how beneficial they are, and we continue them after this is over, as a gift to ourselves.
Life is too short, and I've been thinking about these years behind me, like, why didn't I go to Austria when I had the time, and this and that, and you know, I speak for myself, like I would put things off, and now we're saying we can't put things off because we just don't know. So, you know, see the moment, and if you can go to Austria, even for a long weekend, go to Austria for a long weekend, you know.
Yes. Well, Jennefer, thank you. We are going to drop all of your contact information and ways for them to reach you and you know, find you on LinkedIn in the show notes so that everyone can check out your wonderful work and all the resources that you're sharing with us during this time. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Oh, it was my total pleasure, and thank you for this opportunity. I really appreciate you.
You can find all of our past episodes on iTunes, Spotify, and Google, or any of your other favorite podcast platforms. Be sure to subscribe to the show, rate, and leave us a review. Let us know how we're doing. Thank you for listening.